All right, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome. Hopefully, you all were able to participate in some of the things that we had going on this morning. It was indeed a very exciting morning, full of lots of information regarding financial aid, scholarships from our partner schools. My name is Dr. Karen McCord, and I'm assisted by Ms. Markeisha Richardson. And the name of this workshop is transferring to an HBCU with your family. So we're going to get right into it. If you have questions, you can put those in the chat and we will look at them at the conclusion of the presentation. All right. All right. Thank you. All right. So transferring to an HBCU with family, there are multiple considerations that you need to make. One is you need to take a look at what's your major. What family members are going with you? Some of our students are bringing children, but some are actually bringing parents or grandparents that they've been a caretaker for. So figure out who's going to come with you. The next thing is it a permanent or temporary relocation? Some people choose to go to an HBCU and they're looking to actually relocate. Other people are just looking to continue their education, and then they may come back to California or they may go someplace else. But just begin to think about what it will be for you. And the other thing is that location really does matter. And so you have to consider what's important for you in the different locations that will make a difference in terms of whether or not you can make that successful transition. Next slide. So in beginning, I'd like for you to think about 3 states that you'd like to live in. List some of the schools that you're thinking about transferring to. And give some thought to location and whether or not you've already or plan to make an on-site visit. The last year, because of COVID, that's been a little bit difficult, but for those of you who may just be starting your community college career, if you have an opportunity to go on a tour and actually see the site, that's great. But we had an extraordinary panel of students yesterday, and some of them went to their HBCU having never been on a plane, been to the state, never sight unseen, and they have had awesome experiences. So don't allow that to keep you away. Also think about if you have family members there. Some people want to get away from family. Some people like being a little closer to family because it's something that you may be able to go there if you're not able to come home, like for Thanksgiving or something like that. So oftentimes people who have children, I know when my own daughter transferred to an HBCU, we chose Atlanta. One of the reasons was because I had a brother and sister-in-law who lived in Atlanta, and they were very, very supportive. And so that made a huge difference for her. So, but figure out what will make the difference for you. And so our considerations are your major, location, cultural, what type of environment do you want to live in, whether you want to live also in a big city, small city, rural country, things like that. And finances, costs, money. How much does it cost? Where most of our HBCUs are located, actually housing is much cheaper than it is in California. And so, so people are oftentimes impressed with costs. We surveyed our reps a couple of times, and they generally say that a 2-bedroom apartment is anywhere from a low of about $400 to about $1,000 in most of our locations. So, so the financial part is something to consider. All right, next. Your major, confirm that the school of choice offers your major. So next slide. Oftentimes, someone may fall in love with a school, but if that school doesn't offer your major and you have decided on a major, then it may not be the right place for you. So break it down in terms of what schools are offering what you need to pursue your career. All right, other considerations. Next slide. Is there a major airport near there? You know, that makes a difference in terms of when you get to your location, how will you go from the airport to your school? Some of our schools are very close to a major airport, others not so much. So if that's important to you, then those are things to look into. Is it close to family or friends? Are there respite options also for people who are taking care of family and people who are taking care of children, as well as caretakers for adults who are aging and or disabled? And so are there programs there, programs that you can get involved in? Is there a support system, either a support system known with your family or a support system through resources and services that they may have on location? Next slide. Check with the local school district for their ratings, because while you're looking for an apartment or a place to stay, you have some choices. And so if you check, then you'll know, well, I want to live on this side of town as opposed to that side of town. All right. Determine where you will live. Is it in a desired location? Also check national school rankings, and their ratings are also available. And this is for you if you have students pre-K through 12 and you're concerned about continuing their education and making sure they get a quality in education. You may want to check with that before you make the decision regarding which school you're going to go to. All right. Thank you. Research. You need to research childcare, research preschool programs. Also, if you are eligible, apply for a subsidy and get on waiting lists. As soon as you know where you're going to go, if they say there's a waiting list, get on the waiting list. With my daughter who was traveling with her son, they told us that there was a 2-year wait for the Child Care Center at Clark Atlanta University. And they also said that for subsidized daycare, that there was a wait. Well, we applied anyway. She applied anyway. And she applied, I would say, in March, and she planned to go to school in August. And do you know that by the time she got there in August, she had cleared the wait list both for subsidy and she had cleared the wait list for attendance at the Clark Atlanta University Child Care Center. So if people tell you that, you know, it doesn't look good, you need to put your name in there anyway. All right. So that way, if they don't have your information, they can't call you. All right. Next slide. Employment. If you're currently working, is your current employment transferable? There are many companies that are national that you can work for. And also, that may be the situation for your spouse or someone else that may be coming with you. And so check. A lady that I worked with very recently was in the medical field, and her husband was transferring for school. She was working. She already had her degree, and she was working. And she told her employer that she was going to quit, and she was a telephone advice nurse for a major company. And they said, "Why are you quitting? We need you, and you can do this from wherever. You know, we don't care whether you're here in Atlanta or you're somewhere else." So she was able to stay. And so now, with a lot of things being remote, especially with COVID, there may be some options for you that will, you know, steady your income or that of a spouse or a parent or other individuals. Some people are moving with adult children who may go with you. Research the job market before you go, because one place, although you may be accepted into 3 schools, the job market may be better in one area. And so consider that if you're considering other people. And also what I just mentioned. Is there a possibility to continue in your position and work remotely? And explore campus employment opportunities. And again, those things done early on, whether you are, and this was in the financial aid workshop, need-based versus non-need based. So oftentimes there's work study, but everybody isn't eligible for work study. So it's important to explore campus opportunities with departments, because oftentimes departments have grants or they've allocated funding in their budget and things like that to hire students that are not work study students, but you need to reach out and let them know that you're looking. Housing. Housing is a big issue. So, does the campus have family housing? If you want to live on campus, check and see if they have family housing. They very well may. What options are available in the community? What kind of neighborhoods are they? Is it a safe place? Check all that stuff out. And now, thanks to the internet, there's so much research that we can do without actually being there. How far are you willing to commute to school? Because sometimes, it may be a short either public transportation ride or, if you have a vehicle. But how far do you want to go? Decide that early on. And will you have reliable transportation? Do you have a car that you're going to be taking with you in the location you're going to? Is public transportation reliable and available? And I know that one of our partner schools, actually Bowie in Maryland, the Metro, I think their transportation center system is called the Metro, and it has a stop right at Bowie State University. All right. And so those would be things for people to consider if that is an issue for you. Is there public transportation? There are other places where there's not a lot of public transportation, but there are a lot of places to go. So you may not even need a car, because you can walk from one side of town to the other. All right, next one. Planning for the big move. These are things that you need to organize for both yourself and your family. One would be your medical records. Get your medical records together. If you don't already access your medical records online, now is a good time to start doing that. Also getting your school records together, your school records as well as that for your children that may be going with you. Update your resume so that you'll be ready for different opportunities that may be available. Check your credit report. And this is especially important if you're not going to be living on campus, because they're going to check your credit. Possibly. I mean, there are ways around it, but they're going to check your credit, and it may be a little bit more challenging for you to get a place if your credit report isn't good. With another person that I worked with some years ago, this proved to be very important to them because someone had actually stolen their identity and they didn't even know it. They were young. They really didn't have any credit cards that they had applied for on their own, not really conscious of credit. And someone had actually stolen their identity and opened up like 20 credit cards in their name, bought cars, and also, though, went to jail, been arrested in their name. So by checking before they went, they had time to straighten all of that out before they got on location. So check your credit report, see if there's anything that's incorrect on there, put yourself in the best possible light as possible. Look at what your banking options are. There's some banks that are pretty much all over, but there's some that are not. All right. And so it's oftentimes good to figure out your banking options before you go. Some people choose a bank that is nationwide, but even some of our nationwide banks, and I'll give you an example, Chase is not in North Carolina. And I have banked at, I banked at Chase for a long time, but they're all over New York and DC and Maryland and things like that. And so don't assume that because it's a bank with a national name that it's everywhere, because oftentimes that's not the case. So you want to see what you have access to. If you bank with a credit union, most credit unions have some, where you can withdraw from a different credit union without fees, but oftentimes deposit is a little bit more challenging. So if you're going to be getting paper checks from anywhere, you may want to learn how to deposit your check by taking a picture of it and things like that, to get acquainted with those things. But banking is important. And then the other thing is to get a real ID. And they've been talking about real IDs for the last several years. But if you're going to be traveling by airplane, you need a real ID. They moved back the last date to get a real ID, but you need to do that as soon as possible, especially if you don't have a passport. If you have a passport, you're okay. If you have military ID, you should be okay, but get your real ID. Thank you. What are you going to take with you? That's a big thing. I mean, I moved from New York to California with 6 boxes. 6 boxes and a baby, I tell people. But there was a lot of things that I had to leave behind, and sorting through and figuring all that out was very important. So some people choose to just take their clothing and not worry about furniture or other things. What are the necessities? What are the necessities for you and for your family? Whatever you're planning to take, do you have an estimate on how much it's going to cost to do that? Some people, if they're taking a reliable car, they choose to drive across so that they can bring some extra things, either via a trailer or just sticking it in the car with you. If you have people that are traveling with you to school, which sometimes our students do and sometimes they don't, you may want to travel one of the airlines, which there's only one that gives you 2 bags free, and tell whoever's going with you, they can only bring a carry-on because you need their checked baggage space. But we have to be creative so that we keep our costs down. But finding out what's a necessity and what's necessary for you. And also, what are the kinds of things? Oftentimes people want to buy things while they're in California, for when they get to where they're going. But sometimes now, especially with a lot of options for free shipping and things like that, it's better to have those things shipped to where you're going than to have them here in California and then try to figure out how to get them to where you're going. So those are just things to think about with your planning. Preparing financially and start saving. You need to save. And one of the young men who spoke yesterday on our extraordinary student panel, he said that, that while he was in the community college, he saved the money that he got while he was in community college because he knew he was going to need it when he got to his 4-year college. And part of that also meant that, he might have ate at home instead of eating out. And so he said, rather than eating out, you eat home. And you save some money, but start saving. Make a budget, make a family budget, decide what you're going to need. The ideal is that you have an emergency fund for 3 months. We know that that's not necessarily realistic for everybody, but the idea is if you make that a goal, try to get as close to that as possible. Will you travel back and forth to California for holidays and school breaks? And that's another consideration for your location, because oftentimes if people are close enough to family, then they just do Thanksgiving with family and only come home for the longer breaks, the winter break and things like that. Do something else for spring break, winter and summer. So figure out and work that into your budget if you're going to be coming back and forth. For some of you, if your family hasn't been out of California a lot, they may want to come to you. So so that's another option. Also, if you're currently receiving Section 8 housing, Section 8 housing is now transferable. And so you need to research that so that you know what you need to do to transfer your Section 8 housing, because that will help you. Also, if you have Section 8 housing, make sure you're following all the rules so they don't kick you out. And that's real important. And they have rules, it's a government program, so there are rules. But now that it's portable, that's great. Also, anybody who's receiving, we call it CalFresh in California, food stamps nationally, or other public assistance, look and see what may be available to you where you're going. Public assistance isn't the same everywhere, but the other thing that you have to take into consideration is that the cost of living isn't the same anywhere. Another one of our students yesterday, when asked what was something significant, I'm not recalling the exact wording of his question, but anyway, that happened since he went away to school, a significant difference. And he said gas prices. And that's true. And, I can recall being down south and, someone trying to tell me where Costco or something else was for me to go get the cheapest gas. And I just say, it all looks cheap to me. So it doesn't matter. It all looks really good to me. So, but those are things that may not be as expensive as they are here. But look into what's portable, what can you take with you, and make sure you have all of that lined up before you go. Next one, saying goodbye. Oh, determine the best way for you and your family to say goodbye. And again, COVID does present some other challenges, but there are safe ways to say goodbye to your family. And it's important for the kids to be a part of that process. Give special consideration if you're traveling with children to the children. And before you go, establish ways to keep in touch and to stay connected. Now with the technology that we have, you have video calls, phone calls, Instagram, old-fashioned writing letters, emails, visiting, and also special events. And so decide what's going to be the best way for you and your children to stay in touch and stay connected with people that are important to you in California, and set that up ahead of time and do that. So whether or not that's saying we're going to get together for a Zoom call with my California family, once a month, every other month, whatever works for you all, then do that and be sure to stay in touch. Next slide. Adjusting to your new location. And one of the things about adjusting to the location is that you have to commit yourself to the location. All right. Commit yourself that you're not going to leave, for a year or something, because no matter where you are and what you do, there are going to be times that things get a little tough. It's a little difficult, but you have to hang in there. And our students who do the best are those who have committed themselves to their education, and you go there and commit to getting through the process, whether it's the process of getting registered, working with financial aid. Just don't leave in the middle of the game. Yeah. So in adjusting to your once you get to your location, get involved. That's going to help you. All of our students on our panel yesterday talked about getting involved in fraternity, sorority, clubs on campus, lots of volunteer opportunities, social justice opportunities, traveling with your different clubs for different things. But get involved. That is going to help you feel connected at your new location. Explore your new surroundings. If you're traveling with children or with family members, decide that you're going to explore your location, whatever, once a month, every other week, and visit. Many museums and parks are free, and or they have free days. So find out what are those free days, and there's no excuse. Go to them, check out things. Decide if you want to join a community, a church, or a campus group. And so there are many community groups. A young man yesterday started a chapter of the NAACP at his school. And so those are things that are national. Maybe you're involved at the NAACP in California. Well, that's something you can be involved in there. Many of our schools have California clubs and things like that. So get involved and then there are also special interest groups that you can get involved with. But your adjustment to your new location is going to be dependent upon you feeling connected and being able to get involved there. So our next slide is if there are questions. And I think Ms. Marquisha is going to go to the other chat room to see if you see any questions. Are there questions? Even though traveling and going to an HBCU out of state is a big move, and it's a very big move with family, know that you can do it. Know that it is possible. Know that many others have done it, and you can be successful with it. It does require some planning, and at times it'll be frustrating. It requires some perseverance, but it is something that you can do.
Okay, as of right now, there are no questions. But just want to reiterate, if you are a student interested in transferring to an HBCU, if you look at the stage chat, you will find our student contact form for you to fill out, as well as any counselors or even students. You can join our listserv to hear more information. And also, once we are done with today's session, if you can please complete our survey, and you can find all 3 of those links in the chat posted by Dr. Aaron. If the links aren't working, please let us know.
And did you want to add anything about your adjustment experience in transferring from California to?
I honestly think you really hit everything on the nail. Honestly, yeah. Just I do want to place emphasis though on getting involved. And from someone who's an introvert, I truly understand how hard it is to get involved and to just put yourself out there. But it definitely makes a difference, and honestly makes the experience more enjoyable. Yeah, so it's really important to get involved. That's my tip.
All right. So you can follow us on Instagram. Complete the student contact card in the chat. If you're staff, sign up for our listserv, and we will stay on for a little bit longer because we have a little bit longer. So if you have any questions, we'll go off camera in about 2 or 3 minutes. But after that, we will be here. And if you have any questions, we'll see it. So we'll stay around for another 5 or 10 minutes. This afternoon, we have a job fair this afternoon, and we hope that you will join us for that, and that you will have your friends also join us for the job fair. If you're a counselor or a teacher, please send it out to your students, whoever you can send it to, so they can be aware of this opportunity. And then tomorrow, we're going to have presentations by HBCU president, campus presidents, college presidents. And on Friday, we have our college fair. So it is a week full of lots of information provided to you to help you make a decision about transferring to an HBCU and to understand the opportunities that are available at HBCUs for students. We'll also put our email addresses in the chat too. So if you would like to email us at a later time, you can email us. Okay, we see that there are still people here in the stage area. We will go off camera and we'll be around until 1:45. Does that sound good? So if you have any questions, we'll be here to respond.